Hello all and welcome. This is the Practical Philosopher. In today's video I would like to explore an oft misunderstood idea. An ideology that says this thing, this way of acting is ultimately wrong and that you should always do the opposite. What I'm referring to is the idea of selfishness. Being selfish for oneself own sake. Now, most people believe that selfishness is bad. Selfishness is evil. We should not be selfish. We should be giving. We should not think wholly about ourselves. We should think about our fellow man, be our brother's keeper, be concerned about everybody else. As children, we're taught to be selfless. Share with your brother. Give your brother your stuff. It's good for you. No, it's good for my brother. It's not so good for me. Because it turns out my stuff is my stuff. And maybe I don't want somebody else having my stuff because it's mine. Now that might sound like an immature child talking. Or, you know, like when the kid, you take away a stuffed doll, he starts to cry. Woo, you took my doll. Yeah! Yeah! You're taking my stuff! Yeah, I'm gonna get upset. It's my stuff! So, this is what we're taught as we grow up, that if, hey, you got something somebody else wants, and maybe you're not using it, or maybe you have other stuff that can take its place, or that you can use in the meantime, or you don't need it, well, then maybe you should just give it away, or give it to them, or let them use it. Come on. What's the harm, right? What's the harm in letting somebody else have your stuff, or play with your stuff for a while, or even giving it to them forever? I mean, you don't need it, right? Right? Well, turns out that that's not really a good way to live your life. So that's being selfless. In essence, living for other people, giving is better than receiving. You know, you've heard that. Yeah. It's better if you're the one receiving, but if you're the one giving, it's not so good. It's not so good giving and getting nothing back, huh? Or just giving because, oh, well, I have more than I need. Or if I keep more than I need, I'm being selfish, and that's wrong. Right. Yeah. Why is that wrong? Why? Why? Can somebody tell me why? Or will you just be repeating empty platitudes that have been repeated to you over and over and over again, like, diversity is good. Yeah. Equality of outcome is good. And these are just slogans. If I ask you to tell me why they're good, can you do it? Without just repeating another slogan or some meaningless platitude? Can you give me some kind of logical explanation as to why it's bad? I bet you can't. And the reason why you can't is there's nothing bad about it. So let me explain here. Let's get into selfishness a bit. Let's define our terms, shall we, so that we can communicate and understand each other, something that people far too often don't do as they try to create a ground of relativity so that everybody's right, yet you are wrong if you disagree with them. So, anyway, here we are talking about selfishness. Now, what is selfishness? Okay? Can we define it? Of course, we can define anything. And can we agree upon the definition? Well, let's find out, shall we? So, selfishness is basically you wanting to keep your stuff, right? So, I have stuff I want to keep, I don't want to give it away, right? Not necessarily. So selfishness is really about thinking about yourself, your own well-being. You are the main concern in your life. Not a stranger, not somebody who you don't know. You. You are the main concern. You work for yourself, you earn your money for yourself or your family, and you want to keep what you earn. What's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with that, except that there are people out there who would like you to feel like there's something wrong with that, so you'll give them your stuff. These are the people who are always saying that it's better to give than to receive. Of course, they're the ones that give the least. So let's look at selfishness. Selfishness is self-centeredness, being centered around self in a way. That's what people tend to see. Yeah? Okay? I am me, so it would tend to reason that I will be self-centered and that my concerns will be around me and those people that are in my immediate vicinity, meaning my family and friends. What's wrong with that? Of course, absolutely nothing. But it flies against the leftist idea of altruism, that you should, if you have more, be helping people, other people, people you don't know, generally speaking. Personally, I think that selfishness is a great thing. People, why? And now tell me why that's wrong. Why is selfishness wrong? Can you tell me? Or is your reaction just, oh my God, that's horrible. How can you think that? Right. Do you know why you're having that reaction? Can you tell me why you're having this Pavlovian response? I mean, you've just been programmed to think this way. The idea that selfishness is evil is an indoctrinated thought. It comes from religion first and foremost, when you had thousands of years ago the majority of poor people who are turning to religion because their lives are empty, they're dirt farmers, they have nothing to look forward to except death and the hope that maybe after they die there's some better world out there, which there really isn't. But hey, it's wishful thinking, and if you're going to indulge in wishful thinking, you might as well indulge in the most fantastical thoughts you could possibly imagine. So why not indulge in the belief that you're going to go to a paradise where there's endless everything when you die? Of course, that's the ideal world here, supposedly. Ideology is often such an evil thing because it holds up that which is not realistic and just your idea of what is best. That's where selfishness comes from. People who thousands of years ago and today are very religious, and they follow Christianity oftentimes or other religions that dictate that it's good to give to others. And of course, these religions were created by poor people, essentially, later co-opted by wealthy people in a way who essentially felt guilty, and then they wanted to take advantage. Now you've got, you got poor people, wealthy people. The wealthy people, well, they feel guilty about being wealthy. And so they feel like, I'll get a place in heaven and I'll be a better person if I give. Meanwhile, the reasons they feel guilty are because they've been indoctrinated and told to feel guilty by the very religion that they're following. And of course, poor people are told that they're virtuous and that it's good to be poor, and the poor man is the virtuous man, and that the rich man is evil. So, he should give to you. And of course you're poor, so you can't possibly share with other people because you're poor. You don't have to be giving. You have nothing to give. So all the rich evil people should be giving to you. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds like Marxism, doesn't it? It's amazing how much Christianity and some of these other religions and Marxism and some of the more evil socialist ideologies have in common, isn't it? Yeah. And anyway, this is where the idea of selfishness comes from. It's a religious concept, mainly from Christianity and Judaism, teaching that it's better to give than to receive, that rich people are evil and have no chance of getting into heaven. This is patently a self-serving belief if you're a poor person. And so that's where selfishness comes from, this idea that you are virtuous being poor, and those who have a lot are greedy and are not virtuous, and it's virtuous to give, so the rich man gives to you, the poor man. And of course, in a world, you go back even a few hundred years, not more like 100 years even, most people were poor. 95% of them were poor, dirt farmers. Yeah, you go back 1,000 years, geez, I mean, same kind of numbers. But maybe more like 1% were, or less than 1% were wealthy. And so the majority, vast majority of people when these religions were created were poor, broke people who needed, well, they wanted help, and there were not a lot of mechanisms. There was definitely not equality of opportunity, which is more important than equality of outcome. There certainly were not very many opportunities for the lowly person to raise themselves up. It wasn't very much economic mobility. The ladder they could climb was pretty much non-existent. So, in that sense, these people were stuck in a bad situation. And so, you know, it served them to create a religion that taught that rich people were bad, poor people were virtuous, and so you should give to us because you are privileged in some way. Again, sound familiar, these words? Privileged, oppressed? Yeah. Except, it was a lot more true back then than it is now, for sure. But regardless, and by the way, this is the world that these people created, and yet they're complaining about it. But anyway, let us look at the current situation. We have selfishness, we have greed, and we have selflessness. So, is it good or better to be selfless than it is to be selfish? Well, let's look at an example. I am a man who, let's say I'm a rich guy, okay? And I work my whole life, make a lot of money, okay? And I save and save and save, and I make not millions, but billions and billions of dollars. And I'm one of the most productive people on the planet. I'm so good at delegating responsibility and creating systems of production that allow my intelligence and my ideas to explode production-wise exponentially. And I provide products to the whole world that have made billions, not even hundreds of millions, but billions of lives better. And in return, I have amassed a huge fortune. But in amassing that fortune, I felt a little guilty about, saving this money and having this money and, being so selfish as to be such a rich guy that, I'm going to choose, right, altruism, it's choice. I'm choosing to be altruistic. I'm going to choose to give my money to charities. All different kinds of charities that I have an interest in. Okay? Good or bad? So now he's being selfless. And in fact, I've made so much money and I feel so philanthropic, I give away half of my fortune. $50 billion! Woo! That's bigger than the GDP of some small countries, okay? That's a lot of money. And I feel virtuous. I feel good. And I retire feeling self-satisfied and like I've done a lot of good in the world. Now we have to stop and ask the question, where did my money go? What did I do with my money? What charities did I give it to? Did I give it away like an investor would give away money? Did I do my due diligence and look into every little aspect of where this money would go? Or did I just, in a feel-good way, give it to a charity? Because if I gave it to a private charity, I threw it down the drain. Giving money to a private charity is essentially the equivalent of pressing the flush lever on your toilet and flushing your crap, okay? And that money that's going down the drain is the same as that crap. It's going to serve no use whatsoever. It's just going to go to wherever crap goes and do no good. Because private charities, as anybody who has done any research knows, and if you don't know this, you should do some research. Private charities overwhelmingly keep 90% or more of the money they are giving for their own operating costs and overhead. Let me say that again, 90 or more percent. So, I'm this big philanthropic guy and I feel so good about myself. I gave away half my fortune to charity. Unfortunately, only about 7-8% of it went to poor people that really needed it, and I don't know if those poor people were deserving people or not, meaning were they just people that wanted to live off my teat, charity's teat, or were they productive people who were just down on their luck through no fault of their own? Because if they were people sucking on the teat of a charity, well, geez, that money just disappeared and it served no purpose whatsoever. Of course, if they were really good people who were in that situation, no fault of their own, and just needed a hand up before they were able to renew their productive life, well, then I did some good. Of course, it's kind of a crapshoot, like shooting a shotgun. Maybe I'll hit something, maybe I won't. But I feel good. I feel better. So, is selfishness inherently bad? Of course not. As is the case with a large variety of actions, most actions in life, it's based upon your motives and the end result, your intentions. You know, your selfishness can be a good thing, or it can be a bad one. It depends on your reasons for being selfish. But I would argue that in the overwhelming majority of cases, it's a good thing. Yeah, I would argue that, especially in this world now where we have the majority of philanthropy, of giving, of selflessness being conducted by the government. A government that is so wasteful, they're upwards of 40% of GDP, they have a huge deficit, and problems are just getting worse and worse, and more people are becoming parasites in our society by living off of welfare instead of just using it in a situation that is temporary, such as if they lost their job through no fault of their own, if they got injured on the job. So it's a big problem. So out of control selflessness, bad. Controlled selfishness, good. And controlled selfishness, bad. You see, what the left wants to do, it wants you to not think about any of your actions. It wants you to memorize absolutes. This is absolutely bad, this is absolutely good. Because if it's absolutely good, then we never ever have to analyze it. We don't have to think about it, we just do it. This idea, there is no disagreeing with this idea. Selflessness, nothing bad about it, always good. If that's the case, you don't have to think about it. Now, if it's sometimes bad, and sometimes the selfishness is a good thing, well, then you're going to have to actually think sometimes about whether or not you should give, whether or not you should be selfless. And they don't want that. The leftists, the Marxists, the communists in society, they don't want you stopping to think beyond what is essentially a saying. Selfishness is evil. It's just evil. That's what they tell you all the time, right? Selfishness is just an evil thing, and you're a bastard if you're selfish because the world is full of so many needy people. Just like my brother, he wants my toy, I have to give it to him, right? Well, that's not reality now, is it? In life, you don't always get what you want, and just because you want your brother's crap doesn't mean you're going to get it. And kids should probably learn from an early age that people are selfish, and they have a right to be selfish because they have a right to own their own stuff. The right to private property. That's right. That is tantamount, to have your own private property. That's another reason why the left hates private property rights. Because then, well, you have a right to your stuff, then you have a right to be selfish. And that's the moral conundrum. That's the problem with this selflessness movement. You own your stuff. And if your stuff is yours, and you have an absolute right to expect to have and keep your own stuff, then it's okay to be selfish. Because that's the definition of selfish, to keep your own stuff. And that's what they don't want you to think about. They just want to polarize these words that go against their ideology. Because they're the takers. They're the ones whose it's in their best interest for you to be giving. Okay? No. All selfishness means is the right and ability to keep the fruits of your labor. It's not an evil word. It's not something that translates into you being a bastard. Okay? And it certainly doesn't make you evil because you don't want to share your Tonka truck with your little brother. Okay? It just doesn't. There is no good is good, evil is evil, and this is an absolute truth. In most circumstances, selfishness is the right way to go. And I might add that selfishness is sometimes a good thing. It's most of the time a good thing. Because just like that rich guy who gave away half his money, and his name is Bill Gates, by the way, who gave away his money to just charities, without any due diligence, without any real effort on his part to look into who this charity is going to be giving the money to. I mean, this guy, he wasted, what, about 40, 45 billion of that $50 billion, maybe more, because these charities just are indiscriminately, in many cases, helping people. If you help non-productive people who will continue to be non-productive, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your resources. So selfishness can be taken advantage of. I mean, selflessness. Selflessness can absolutely be taken advantage of, and it usually is. And if you're a very selfless person, you will be taken advantage of. And if you don't do any due diligence, people are just going to suck and suck at that teat until there ain't nothing left. And they're going to move on to the next host, like the parasites they are. Now, leftists like you to believe that selfishness is bad, because then they can't take your stuff. They can't justify taking from you. But if selfishness is bad, and they brand themselves as people that need, and they brand you as someone who is greedy and who is hoarding limited wealth, which there is no such thing. There's no pie. Wealth is not a zero sum, nor is the accumulation of it. If they can brand you as the bad guy that's hoarding all this wealth, and they're people who need it, and it's horribly wrong to be selfish, which really translates into you being able to keep what is yours, then they can freely take your stuff and justify it morally. It's that simple. But you have to make a more intelligent moral argument. And you have to highlight the facts that, hey, it's my stuff. It doesn't matter that you need it. It doesn't matter that you want it. I want to be king of England. I don't think it's going to happen, okay? I'm not entitled to stuff just because I want it or need it. And by the way, need does not translate into actual physical receiving of stuff. Just because you need it doesn't mean you should get it. I need food, so I should get it or I'll die from starvation. I need water, and if I don't get it, I'll die from starvation. Need does not translate into either getting or being entitled to get. But the idea of selfishness is contrary to those leftist teachings. And therefore, words, ideas like selfishness are branded as evil. They are taught as evil. They have been taught as evil by religions since the dawn of time. And they will continue to be taught as evil by leftists that want your stuff, who want to control you, who want to control society, who want to impose their grand vision onto the world. A vision that wouldn't work. And if they looked at history, they would know that. But, of course, you know, they look at history, they say, well, that wasn't real socialism. And, of course, they overlook the fact that they're being so arrogant as to say that, because the truth is, if somebody says something like, that wasn't real socialism, in their head, they believe that they know what is real socialism, and they believe that they're the ones smart enough and astute enough to implement it and be the person that is running that system. Now, how arrogant must you be? And most of the people that think this stuff, what have they actually accomplished in life? Most of them, nothing. No, but they know the vast secrets of the universe and how to make socialism work. And they know that it could work if their system, their formula for it was applied. Of course, the whole premise is false. So it would never work no matter how they tried to implement it. But don't bother telling them that. No, they have a grand vision in their mind, and they know that they're right and you're wrong. Yeah, okay. So, selfishness, not bad. Think of what Bill Gates could have accomplished with that $50 billion if he hadn't given it away. Jesus Christ. That guy could have set up his own charity. He could have set up small panel of people who gave out scholarships to people to study whatever they wanted. Scholarships, whatever university or vocational school they wanted to go to. Imagine how much education $50 billion buys. Yes. Just so long as they're not going to a leftist institution, which unfortunately is most of the colleges in America. So yeah, you might be hard-pressed to get these people to go to a college that has more than a handful of conservatives working at it. But regardless, what could he have accomplished with that $50 billion? We'll never know. He could have kept it and grown his business, improved his business, hired more people, and contributed to the society. And I mean, good God, it's production that makes a society more wealthy, not spending money. So he could have done a hell of a lot more with that money than just giving it away to charities who waste it on their salaries and then give a little trickle to the poor people to justify their existence as a charity. It's a joke. He made himself feel better at the expense of a lot of other people because he wasted a lot of money. Hell, he could have started his own charity, for God's sake, and created a small panel that would never grow, ever. And just their whole job is all day getting petitions and looking at and doing their due diligence about who deserves what. Should this person get this? Should this person get that? He could have created a small business loan organization, which would have given small businesses loans. Yeah, 80+% of small businesses fail, but 20 of them would have succeeded. And that would have greatly, greatly contributed to society. Not to mention the fact that even though most small businesses fail, for a certain period of time, from a short length to a pretty long length, they exist and employ people and contribute to society. So I don't look at it as he contributed a lot. I look at it as he wasted a lot. And I look at it as a lot of potential good he could have done that went down the drain along with his toilet paper. So he should have been a little more selfish, yeah. And if it's his money, and if he did want to give it away, he has that absolute right. But he should have practiced some judicious altruism, which means giving his money away in a focused way so that it would have done the most good. Meaning instead of 10% of the people, I'm donating this money for, only 10% of it's getting to them, and then 90 is being paid to the executives in this charity and to employ the people who work for this charity. Instead of that, it should have been flipped around. Maybe 5-10% administrative costs and 90% doing some actual good. But that would have required too much work on his part, and why bother? Just give some money and I'll feel better about it. I'll feel better about myself. I'll feel virtuous. Sure, why not? So don't believe when the religious kooks and the extreme leftist Marxist nutjobs tell you that selfishness is good. I mean, it's bad. Don't believe it when they tell you that selflessness is good. And being selfish is just horrible, evil thing. Because in the end, these people are the ones that are studying subjects in university that won't get them a job, like liberal arts or something. What the hell can you get with that? That's a study on nothing. It doesn't teach you anything. Or studying poetry. Yeah. Be so productive with that. How many poets get published these days? And who cares about poetry in this world, really? Some people, maybe, but not too many. So, instead of focusing on studying something productive, they followed their passions and will make no money in life. And now they are extremely bitter about that. And they're disenchanted with the whole system. And, of course, they should get free shit because they made some bad choices. And that's another thing that selfishness is good with. There's not too much free help floating around out there that allows you to make bad choices. And if you do make bad choices, you suffer the consequences of your actions. But if everybody everywhere is being real selfless and giving just indiscriminately, well, you can afford to make bad decisions and continue to make them and never have to make any responsible decisions your entire life. Wow! Isn't that a great world? Yeah. I don't think that's so great. I'm a champion of selfishness. I think it's a wonderful thing. And you can't tell me why it's a bad one, and the reasons you would give me, I've just disproven. So, yes, there are times where it's okay to be selfless. Absolutely. But don't be indiscriminately selfless. And don't let anyone guilt you into believing that it's bad to be selfish. Because all they're doing is trying to indoctrinate you into the belief that private property rights are wrong and that you don't have a right to your own property that you own. And they would tell you, and they're trying to teach you that you can't own anything. Yeah, it's communal. It's community property. Where have I heard that before? So, in closing, selfishness is no evil thing. At its base core, at the core of the idea of selfishness is the idea that you have the right to your own stuff. That's it. And that's why it's branded as evil. Nothing more. I am the Practical Philosopher, and I wish you a good day.